practice negotiations. There are videos for this session that are uploaded to the course shell, but they are also available on our course YouTube channel as well, because you're going to need to wait on my video. So apologies to the very first class who had to wait much longer than everyone else. This week we are working on BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So last week we were looking at positional bargaining and at sort of a feeling of less, like each person is looking at the whole as any part that is gone from that whole means that I lost something and that I haven't obtained as much. But what we should be doing is looking at negotiating and looking for the best possible outcome for everyone. And it's that idea with the orange example with the two sisters, that one person wanted the inside of the orange, the flesh, and the other wanted the outside of the orange, the zest. And each person could have had fullness, they could have had everything. But because they saw that as sort of positional bargaining and as everyone sort of losing something, neither ended up with all. And that's what we are pressing forward with. How do we make that happen? What are some steps that we can utilize? So we'll look at the topic outcomes, as always, our readings and viewings, our assignment, and how to handle these ideas. Generally, of course, we are looking at these topic outcomes in terms of sort of separate from the assignments themselves, but they are very assignment specific. So we're going to look a little bit at these ideas, but we're going to specifically discuss them under the assignments. So remember, some ideas about negotiations. We're trying, as you saw in our discussion for session 3, we're all just sort of thinking through these situations, and lots of us have had really, really different experiences. Some of us have had a negotiation experience, but plenty of us don't quite feel like we have had that experience. It is new and different and unusual, and so we're trying. We're not perfect. We're not excellent at this yet necessarily. We're exploring, and you may obviously feel uncomfortable and nervous, especially with video. So make sure you're asking questions, make sure you're reaching out for support, and try, I know it's hard, but try to enjoy the process. So I wanted to include this week, obviously you have the biblical perspective available to you each week, but I wanted to specifically look at this because there are some really key questions here that I think are really, really important when we're talking about negotiating. Remember, we're looking at the best for all, and so we have these questions about how do you enter into negotiation humbly, but still firm in your convictions, realizing that you have a need and that you should have that need be met. How can you rejoice even when it's unsatisfactory? Again, in our discussion in session 3, you may have found a few cases where people are talking about, hey, I stood firm on this and it didn't work out. And that can be really, really exceptional. So explore these ideas, really tap into this space between humility and honoring your value and your worth. I think that is a very hard space for pretty much all of us, but it is possible, and we will always be on that journey to reach it. So our readings this week, we are focusing on getting to yes, which, as you've already found, is a little bit lighter than our previous work. But again, remember, we are reading a lot. So if you find that it's just sort of overwhelming in any way, remember to sort of pause and sort of skim it and look for details that catch your attention, because you can always refresh and reread it. You can always look for specific areas when you need them. Don't feel pressured to read every single word if that's overwhelming to you with the quantity. Viewings, yay, it's not that much this time. We just have a video about getting to yes, and it's a lot of fun to look at this sort of space about negotiation. To talk a little bit as we go into this on that time frame. So our BATNA, our best alternative to a negotiated agreement, is to be submitted by Tuesday, and it's a written part, whereas our practice negotiations are going to be video responses. So let's look at this in terms of the sort of deadlines that are available. We're looking at putting these into a submission first, which I know is sort of backwards from what we usually do, and then everything else is going to be on the discussion thread. And then to give it more depth, obviously mine is going up today. Hopefully in most classes it's earlier than that. And then you have your side of it where you are submitting that BATNA so that I can give you some responses and work with you on that. and then you're responding in video, and then I will respond in either video or by writing the post, and then you have your final response. So you're doing 2 short videos. Let's look at some more of those pieces. One, Tuesday. That's a big change in what we normally do. So I want you to be communicating. That may not be possible for everyone. Like if you heavily do your work toward the weekends and you prep ahead, or you have double shifts on Monday and Tuesday, that could be a really, really difficult thing. So converse, communicate, talk to your instructor so that we can make sure we're on the right path together, because obviously things are movable. Then let's look at this BATNA first. So you are submitting this to me because you're working through these ideas. Again, remember, you're practicing this. This is probably a first for every single person. Awesome if you have gotten to do this before. But most of us are doing this for the very first time, and we're starting to think about these concepts. So the BATNA is our baseline. It's letting us think through what's happening. A lot of us talk about how we like to interact in these kinds of situations. Someone may like to do face-to-face. Someone may prefer the phone. Someone else may prefer email. There are different ways to interact. And so we may not be in a position to do our favorite. My favorite is email. I would so much rather not be face-to-face because I want to think about it. I want to process each part. My husband's the opposite. He loves face-to-face and hates email as the last resort. So since we're all different, this is the kind of thing that can put us relatively on the same page. It lets us start to think through things and prepare in advance. We want to protect ourselves, and we want to give ourselves that power in the proceedings to make sure that we know what we need, we know what we want, and we know where we have to walk away. So there are 3 steps that we're going to look at for generating it. You're going to write out that initial proposal and send it to me, and use it as a preparation for your video response. So what are these 3 steps? 1, we're looking at a list of actions you might conceivably take. Like if you can't reach an agreement, what happens? Do you need to take less because you absolutely have to have a job? Do you take less because you absolutely need whatever the product is? Or do you walk away? Do you commit to yourself to walk away? What do these kinds of things look like to you? What is your breaking point? We want to improve some of the more promising ideas, because what if they mention something like we're talking in our sample about things like healthcare and a 401k? Well, a 401k is a great thing, but what if your company could match it? What if they could include dental with the healthcare? Look for these kinds of steps to say, look, you talked about X, or you raised the issue of X, or we need to talk about it. And what kind of steps could be added to it to sweeten the pot? For instance, as I mentioned there with 401k or healthcare, if something is added to it that you really need, how much money is that in the end saving you? So could you handle a lower salary if they were matching your 401k because you have security in your future? Could you handle a slightly lower salary if they were covering dental and optometry? If you're my husband and you're wearing glasses and contacts, you are like, oh, that's an expense that you have to cover, and that could be changed. Me, I had LASIK, so I don't need those anymore. I'm not going to see that as sweetening the deal. I'm going to be like, well, that doesn't help me. But what if it covers my family policy? Then I would say, oh, well, yeah, I want to be able to cover my family. So look for those kinds of spaces where something could be added. Additionally, start to think about alternatives. If X, then Y. If Y, then Z. If, start to play with these ideas. And of course, it's down there in about page 79 in the book. I'm not sure my pages are accurate. Then you submit it. So what it looks like when you submit it is 3 or 4 actions you may conceivably take if no agreement is reached. Improve 2 promising ideas and convert them into practical alternatives. Finally, select 1 alternative that seems best and explain your reasoning. Finally, we're looking at our privileged information. So what we're giving you is sort of the start of a BATNA. It's starting to say, you know what, this is what you have. As you go into my video and you watch my offer, you can say, okay, well, some of these things on the offer don't match up. Do I walk away? Do I just say, okay, bye, you didn't say what I wanted right away. Bye, get lost. Well, that doesn't really help anyone. There are things that we don't know from each side. We're just meeting each other, we're just getting to know each other. So, what can you say or what can you suggest to make some of those changes? So, for instance, you have a starting salary that you're looking at. You're saying, my family will give me that. Why should you live with less? Why should you have a not enough attitude? You should go for the most. So, if I don't match that offer, is that the end? Or remember, we have our initial interview, we have the offer, we have a response to the offer, we have a response to the response to the offer, we have a response to the response to the response to the offer. Keep going with these things, keep pushing forward. I just did a garage sale, so a gentleman said, well, on those 2 tools you have X amount listed, like I'm interested in both of those tools. And I said, well, the number my husband has put on them totals $65. And he said, well, can you make me a deal? And so I said, I was thinking in my head, well, 50, like I want these gone. I need to like move on. It's a garage sale, like get things gone. And I thought, well, if we're negotiating and I want the best possible price because I could, have dinner tonight, that's nicer. And then I said, well, what about 60? Because I'm showing him that I'm willing to move. I took $5 off the top. And he said, well, what about 55? And I said, absolutely, they are yours. Think about that. I was ready to settle for 50. I was ready to shortchange myself. But they were good tools. I know they work well because I use them all the time. And I made space for him to talk, for me to talk, for us to go back and forth. So he's happy because he got a lower amount. I'm happy because I got more than I would have settled for. What if he'd come back with 50? I would have probably said 55. And then he could have come back with 52. So look at those spaces. Realize that you are worth it. For this particular sample, you don't have other offers. You have some resumes that you put out, but we all kind of know what that's like these days. Gosh, for the last 10 years, we know what that's like. I can't count how many resumes I sent out and how few replies I got, and it's worse these days. So that's a hard basket to have your eggs in. You don't want to leave the city where you are right now. You wish you could stay. But cost of living is what it is. What is that going to look like? If I offer 6 to 9 months, then you're good to go. What if I don't? What if I don't offer those 6 to 9 months? How can you push for something else? And realize this one is nervous to me because that's a negotiation again. It's not a yes. It's not, well, in 6 months your salary will rise. Instead, it's we will negotiate, we'll discuss, we will review. So look for those elements and see where you can find some space. You're looking for a hypothetical. If it feels nerve-wracking to think about it as you arguing for yourself, think about someone you value. Do you want the best for that person? Do you appreciate that person? Do you want other people to appreciate that person? Go into that. Think about how much that person is worth and that you want them to receive their worth. And then hopefully you'll reach that point for you as well. So check out my video for the discussion. It's definitely part of it. It is on our YouTube channel and it is in the session 4 discussion thread as well. So then you've seen your sort of starting point. You saw my offer from Perkins Publishing. Then you gave me your BATNA where we are talking about your proposal and sort of what you're thinking about. But you have to respond. Remember, negotiating. If I offer something in the video, how can you ask for something else? If I don't meet your needs, how can you ask for the next step? What does a salary look like? Is a salary just cash? Or is a salary covering other things? Like these are all details we're looking at. I had a little bit of difficulty getting a lot of length for mine, so I think we need to really visit this 5 to 7 minutes. I feel like some of us that's going to be relatively easy, and for others it's going to be really tricky. So I don't want you to focus on that right now. Right now we're looking at that idea, but we're negotiating as a class. We're saying, is that the best? is that ideal? So I want you to kind of, think about that space that you're covering everything, that you're responding. We're practicing. We want to take it seriously, but we are practicing. It's not real. So I want you to play with that and see how it goes. And then you post, and then I will negotiate back. I will either write or do a video. We're going to see how this week goes. So play with it, see what works for you, and do not hesitate to ask lots and lots of questions. We are all trying this out. I want it to be fun. I hope that you'll see my offer video and realize that I want this to be sort of exciting and interesting, and I want us to think about sort of the core concepts much more than how did I do it? Did I do good? Would that offer look good? We're not actually working together on Perkins Publishing. We are playing. We are hopefully having some fun with this. So check out our calendars, look at our lists, and have a little fun.